Intervals for string players. Today we are going to talk about the different quality of intervals. So let's go ahead and draw interval of a third. So let's just mark it as a third. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same two notes here. So we have another third. Okay, so E and G, E and G. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a sharp right here. So now we have E and G, and then here we have E and G sharp. So what's the difference? Is it still a third? Yes, it is a third. So the first one we will call minor third, and I'm going to explain why. And the second one we're going to call a major third. So what's the difference between these two intervals? Well, you can see that this one probably will be a little bit wider. If we listen to these two intervals, let's get to our keyboard. And if I play these two notes, that's the first one, the G natural, and the second one. So you see, they do sound different. So this is the first one, the second one. Okay, so the second one is wider, so we call it a major third. So how does it work? Well, it is a third because we're still using the same three notes, the same three names of the notes, E, F, G, E, F, G, 3, so it's a third. Now, the minor third has 3 half steps in between, so if you count these half steps, so you'll get to the 3 half steps. And then if we get to the G sharp, you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. Okay? So let's get back to our whiteboard here, and let's just draw a little bit like a little chart here. You can see that our intervals, they change, they're different, and they have different qualities, we call them. So our intervals can be minor, can be major. Also, some intervals can be perfect. Let's just mark it as letter P. Okay. Also, some of the intervals can be diminished. We put a lowercase letter d. And then also, some of our intervals can be augmented. Right. So let's just talk about minor thirds, minor intervals, major intervals, and then perfect intervals. The diminished and augmented, it's a little bit more advanced. We can talk about it in another video, but let's just take these 3 qualities of intervals. So let's just make a little chart here. So let's just say there will be certain intervals that can be can change between minor and major. Oops, I shouldn't say thirds. I'll just say minor and major. Let's just write them down. Minor, major. Okay. And then here we're going to have perfect. Perfect. Okay. So these are the basic qualities we are going to talk about it. Okay, about this today. So which intervals can be minor and major? So for this group, we'll say thirds, right? Thirds can be minor or can be major. Well, actually our seconds, let's just start with the seconds, thirds. Then fourth and fifth, we're going to talk about them later. We will have sixths and sevenths. And again, we're talking about only the intervals that fit in an octave. Okay, so we have seconds, we have thirds, sixths and sevenths. So these intervals, they can be minor or major. Okay, and then the perfect intervals, it's a perfect unison, prime or 1, fourths, fifths, and eighths. So we have here, these are the intervals. So on this side, you can change them between minor and major, and these ones, they are perfect. So when we are talking about perfect, then we're talking about changing them into diminished or augmented. So this is where this diminished augmented will start. I'm not saying that these ones could be diminished or augmented. We'll talk about that later. But that's where we start in the beginning, in order to understand the concept of intervals. All right? So let's just talk about just one example. Let's just say seconds. So let's just draw, let's say F. So the second would be a G note. A G note, if you look at the keyboard, let's get to the keyboard, it's very visual, so we use a keyboard. So that's your F, this is your G. You can see that between these two notes, there is a black key right here, right? So in order to make it a minor second, you would have to use a G flat, okay? And in order to make it a major second, you will just keep it as a natural. So how do you do this? So, well, you just mark flat before the G, okay? So that would be minor second. Now in order to make a major second, you'll just have to keep your G as a natural, okay? So, and this is the example of minor versus major. You have a half step versus a whole step. Also, what you could do, you could find the chart that has exactly the exact amount of half steps or whole steps, depends on how you like to count. Let's say for minor sixths versus major sixths. So you can calculate those as well. All right, well, happy practicing.